Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Joanne Davidson. In 1984, in March, I signed the book to become a member. And in those 38 years, I have done a lot of things at a variety of levels, from teaching RE to being on the board as treasurer and as secretary. Been at the soup kitchen most of that time. Been on a variety of committees. And I must say that signing the book and becoming a member of this congregation was probably the wisest thing that I've done in my life. And so I'm not a particularly social person, so you won't probably see much of me, and I'm getting less social as I get older. But I want you to know that I love you all. I thank you all, and I carry you in my heart all the time. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. We are so glad that you are able to join us this morning online and in person. Our weekly services are more than just a gathering of our physical bodies. It is the forming of a sacred time that we have been making together for 200 years. As we work to build a more just world, and in that sense of sacredness, along with deep respect, we acknowledge that our physical building is on the traditional land of the Paugussett people. If you're new and joining us online, we invite you to introduce yourselves and where you are connecting from in the chat box as you are comfortable. At the conclusion of today's service, you will have the chance to participate in a breakout group for individual connections and deeper check-ins. If you are new and joining us in person, please stay at the conclusion of the service so that we may greet you. We welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, whatever your theological stance, whatever your heritage, whoever you are, and whomever you love, we welcome you. You can learn more about UUCD on our website and Facebook page. We encourage you to share our Facebook page and reach out to others who may feel isolated and might benefit from the spiritual connection from our loving community. I encourage you to take a look at the announcements in the order of service. There is one for today that choir rehearsals are resuming today. They will happen after the service, 11:45 to 12:15. If you reach out to Jerry at musicdirector@uudanbury.org for the rehearsal schedule. And I'm planning to stay for that, so it's been a long time. Again, welcome to the UU Congregation of Danbury, where we welcome all in a spirit of compassion, inquiry, and service. Please join us for our hymn of welcome, which is Morning Has Come.
Morning has come, arise and greet the day. Dance with joy and sing a song of gladness. The light of hope it shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. A new day dawns, once more the gift is given. Wonder fills this moment shared together. The light of peace it shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. Open our eyes to see that life abounds. Open hearts to welcome it to us. The light of love here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home.
Thank you. You may be seated. Children, all are we. Children, all we come together. We come together in hope and trust to find what meaning life holds for us. Children, all we come together to laugh and to sing with one another, to soothe the wounds of daily life, and to share our burdens and our strengths. And as children all, we come to grow together in wisdom and to further deepen our compassion. It is good to come together, and it is good to be together, children all, on this day. Welcome. I invite our service associate, Deb Casey, to come and light our chalice, and I invite those of you online, if you have a chalice at home, to light it at this time, and then we will join together in our words of affirmation.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Please join me in the affirmation as I light the candle. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another and celebrate life. And I'd like to invite Sierra Marie to lead us in our children's affirmation.
Indeed, so good to be together. Please join me using the words that are on the screen. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other. So I brought a picture to go with my introduction to this story. This is a picture of one of my favorite parks. We moved around a lot when I was a kid, and this particular park is Lithia Park in Ashland, Oregon, where we lived for only a very brief time. But it is one of my absolute favorite parks. You can see that there's a little brook to wade in, which of course was my favorite activity. But what you cannot see in this photo is that there was also this incredible playground. I tried to find pictures of it now, but they've made it very child safe now. And so you can't see all of the incredible structures that we played on when I was a kid. But sometime remind me to tell you about the human-sized hamster wheel, because that was my absolute favorite part of my favorite park. The reason that I'm showing you a picture of a park is because this story is about a community that did not have a landscape like this and did not have a playground to go in that landscape. This story, which came from the curriculum called Wonderful Welcome, is based on a true story that was reported in the New York Times in 1987. Here it is. When Amy woke up, she was glad to see the sun shining, not like today. Today was the day her family would help build a playground right in her own neighborhood. An ugly, empty patch of dirt and weeds, not at all like the picture I just showed you, sat there. But soon there would be a treehouse with swings, a sandbox shaped like a lemon, a bumpy, twisty slide, and even a castle tower. You would be able to climb up on the tower using a ladder and shimmy down on a rope. Or you could roll a wheelchair or a stroller to the top along a ramp that spiraled gently all the way up. Talk about a sign, a ginormous sign that says, "Welcome, children." The playground was going to be right next to Amy's school, in between the tall apartment buildings, like the one where she lived, and the stores and the stone plazas with benches for grown-ups to sit. It would be fantastic. Amy knew what the playground would look like because she had seen pictures of it. She had even helped to draw and color in some of them. In fact, a lot of the playground's best ideas had come from the children in Amy's school. The children had raised some of the money with a bake sale. Now they were going to help build the playground today. See, the school had never had a playground, and the parents had been upset about that for a long time. Amy's school had a nice gym inside, and it had a beautiful art room and a music room with a real piano, but no place outdoors for the children to have recess. Their teachers didn't let them play in the empty dirt yard. There was too many weeds and too much litter. But soon, if enough people came to help, the dirt yard would be a beautiful community playground. Amy put on her oldest jeans and an old shirt. She didn't mind getting dirty. She put on socks and sneakers too. Then Amy and her mom and her dad and her brother Eddie walked over to the empty dirt yard. Everyone was already busy. There was Dr. Jefferson carrying some flat rubber squares that looked like big puzzle pieces. He said hi to Amy's family. Sharon and Andy Tran, whose mother owned the little grocery store, were helping some grown-ups stack large purple bricks. Amy knew those were for the castle tower. It had been her own idea to make it purple. Mrs. Jefferson greeted Amy's family. Right away, she handed Amy a fresh, new sheet of sandpaper, the prop that I just lost. Go over and help Zinnia Goldstein sand those blocks, she said. Zinnia was Amy's babysitter, so Amy was happy to work alongside her. Zinnia showed her how to use the sandpaper to smooth the edges of the blocks. After a while, Eddie came over with a wheelbarrow to get the smooth blocks. Amy saw him carry them to Dr. Jefferson and Miss Marano from the library. They were painting the blocks purple. Amy said, "Oh, the blocks will be part of the castle tower too." It was getting hot, and Amy was feeling tired when Pete and his dad came by in their pizza delivery truck. Pete's dad blew a whistle, and the hammers and drills and talking quieted down. "Lunch for everyone," Pete's dad called. In the afternoon, Amy and her friend Lucy counted out screws, nuts, and bolts. They were sitting in the shade next to a pile of wooden boards. Amy was glad to have a job where she could sit down for a while. "What do you think these boards are for?" she asked Lucy. "I don't know," said Lucy. "Maybe for the treehouse." "Well, if somebody paints them purple, we'll know what they're for," Amy said. "The castle tower," both girls said, laughing. The walk home seemed long that evening. Amy wished her mom or dad would pick her up and carry her, but they looked tired too. Her mom said, "So many people came to help today that the playground might be finished this week." "Well, it won't be more than 2 weeks anyway, if the weather holds out," said her dad. 1 week or 2, Amy didn't mind. She didn't mind if it took 3 weeks or all summer. She was going to go and help every day. When school started again in September, recess would be something special. Amy would climb the purple castle tower and look all around. She would see her friends playing in a treehouse with swings, a sandbox shaped like a lemon, and a bumpy, twisty slide. That would be amazing. But the best part was that Amy knew that she would always think of even more people every time she went to the community playground. Dr. Jefferson, Mrs. Tran, Zinnia, Pete and Lucy, and more. Everyone who had helped. Before I close out this story, I just want to invite you to take a minute to think of a time when you have worked together with others on something. Everyone who helped. Now, normally this is when we would send the children and youth to their religious education programming. Our high schoolers are ice skating today. And we have a number of illnesses and out of town trips happening among our younger kids. So we don't have them to sing out, but we will still sing This Little Light of Mine all together.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Thank you, Sierra Marie, and thank you, Jerry. Before we go into our time of shared milestones, I'm going to give you an opportunity to turn your phones off or put them on silent, or if you feel that you need to know if a call comes in, put it on vibrate so that we avoid any disruptions during the service. Thank you. This is the time that we share. We share from our hearts. We share what we've brought here. We share what is weighing on us. We share what is lifting us. We share the milestones of our lives. And so we enter this time with hearts and minds open to hear what this community has brought with them today. And all are welcome to share if you feel that you have a milestone to share with this community. We invite you online to share your milestones by typing in the chat box, and those will be read. And I'll give you a moment as our service coordinator, Deb Casey, prepares with the microphone, or not with the microphone, with your phone, to check on those milestones that come in the chat box, because you online are a part of this community too, and your milestones are important to us. So take a moment. And if you have a milestone that you wish to share with the community this morning, if you would just raise your hand, and Deb will call on you to come to the microphone, share with us your name, and briefly share your milestone. And we will alternate between in-person and online milestones this morning. And let's hold this space with a sense of reverence and a sense of beloved community. Milestones to share. Milestones that were not shared, but also it's hope for peace. So I will light the candle and I will strike the singing bowl as we spend just a few moments in silence holding what has been shared here before we then move into our hymn of reflection. Remaining seated and in this spirit of reverence and deep compassion, would you join with me in singing our hymn of reflection this morning? Comfort Me. The words are printed on the screen. If you prefer to look at it in your hymnal, it's number 1002. Comfort Me.
Comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
Thank you. This morning, instead of listening to me share a reading with you, I'd like for us to listen to the voices of children singing. The Ukrainian children's choir called Color sings beautifully, and I encourage you to really see them and to see in them the children that you know. They are all our children. I Am Your Child is a song that says, whatever I am, you taught me. I am your hope. I am your chance. I am your child.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. There is no life without its hunger. Each restless heart beats so imperfectly. But when you come and I am filled with wonder, sometimes I think I glimpse eternity. You raise me
Did you look at them? Did you see the children you know in their faces? Children are such an important part of our world, of our lives, of this community here. When we consider the future of this community, as Yvonne said, whether it's in 5 years or 10 years or next year, when we consider what that future will look like, how we will support that future, let those children be forefront in your mind, because that is where we are going. They are waiting for us to raise them up so they can be on our shoulders and be strong. I want to invite Peter Horton to come as we're thinking about future. We're thinking about what happens next in this community and how we can support it, and we consider our children. But I want to invite Peter Horton to come and to share with us a few words as we begin an important time in the life and this year of our community.
Morning, folks. I'm Peter Horton. I have the honor to be UUCD's stewardship lead this year. This year's stewardship campaign will formally kick off on Sunday, April 3rd, with a special service here in Fellowship Hall. Our theme this year is One Community, Many Hands. You'll see more messaging elaborating on that theme over the next several weeks. In recent years, an evolving definition of stewardship has come to mean the management sense of stewardship, careful and responsible management. This sense is commonly found nowadays in contexts such as stewardship of the environment. Stewardship is now generally recognized as the acceptance or assignment of responsibility to shepherd and safeguard the valuables of others. Think of that. The responsibility to safeguard the valuables of others. Last Sunday, at the Pathway to Membership class, my wife, Lisa, talked to the attendees about our stewardship program. She explained that becoming a member of UUCD is committing to its future. When we pledge and give generously to UUCD, we are also committing to making sure that as a congregation, we are here 10 or 20 years from now, or even another 200 years from now, just as the founders of this congregation did so many years ago. Bless them for their initial financial contributions, and bless each successive generation of congregants who have made sure we are still here today. They have all been stewards who have taken on the responsibility to safeguard the valuables of others, the valuables being the existence of this congregation. As one community maintained by many hands, UUCD has an amazing history of being financially generous. A handful of years ago, a very successful capital campaign was conducted. $500,000 donated to the future of the congregation. Last year, in the midst of a confounding and horrific pandemic, we again rose to the occasion, gave generously to the future of this congregation, and far exceeded what other UU congregations were able to financially commit to. Proof that one of our core strengths of our congregation is our commitment to our future through generous financial support. When it comes time this year to make your financial pledge to UUCD, remember that you are part of a tradition that has purposefully taken on the responsibility of shepherding and safeguarding the valuables of others, that being the presence of this congregation. Please pledge generously. Thank you.
It is now time for our offering. If you're new with us today, we are so happy that you've joined us, and your presence here is your gift to us today. For members and friends, those of you at home, you may click the link that is going to appear in your chat, or you can use the QR code. And we are actually passing the plates again in the sanctuary. So for those of you here, we're going back to our traditional way. Whichever way you choose to give this morning, please know that it is greatly appreciated. And now please join me in our dedication of our offering. In the spirit of compassion and service, we dedicate these, our offerings.
Dona nobis pacem. Thank you, Jerry. Imagine with me a magical, glorious flower garden. You're going to have to suspend all rational thoughts for just a moment here, because this is a garden that winds its way street by street through the entire village. And the garden is filled with absolutely gorgeous flowers. They're popping up along the stony path, and at every turn, there's a glimpse of magnificent color. Along the garden fence, are you imagining all of this with me? Okay. Along the garden fence, there are signs of life. They're stretching up, they're reaching for the sky. I want you to observe the splendor of this garden, where the flowers have the capacity to bloom all year round. We don't have to wait. They're always blooming, they're always growing, no matter the season. And I invite you to take inventory of the sensational sights and smells. The tulips. The tulips are one of the early bloomers with their friends, the crocus and the daffodil. And the tulips, they can't wait to try standing proudly on those delicate stems. They have a theatrical flair. Their vivid colors, their graceful leaves. And then the old-fashioned tiger lily, just like a good friend. You know you can always count on them. They show up with their beautiful, wide, curving petals peppered with freckles. And of course, there are the roses, the fragrant roses, considered one of the most beautiful and fragrant in the garden. And yet, they've got those thorns that can be dangerous. They have to be pruned. This village garden is filled with ramblers and climbers, delicate and hardy, miniature and colossal, hybrid and classics. And as diverse as the flowers are in color and in shape and in fragrance, there's one thing that all the flowers have in common, even in a magical garden. They need to be tended. The flowers need sunlight and they need to be watered and pruned and fertilized and even encouraged. It's as if really all those flowers want to somehow change the world with their beauty and their strength, their daring sense of adventure and their dreams for the future. And the flowers I'm referring to are our children, the young people who live in our village here at UUCD, our village here in Danbury, our village here in Connecticut, our village here in the world. The young people, the children who have taken place as a symbol of life that stretches and reaches for the sky. Some of us, I think, easily recognize our responsibility as gardeners, as village gardeners. Some of us do. The teachers. How many of you are teachers or have been teachers? Majority of the people here. Daycare providers, babysitters. Anybody ever do daycare, babysitting? That's probably almost everyone as well. Parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, coaches. But whether we're any of those things, or we're neighbors, or we're mentors, or we're simply fellow congregants, maybe village residents, we all impact that garden, every single one of us. Because without even saying a word, just our presence has the potential to nurture the children in our midst. Make no mistake about it, in case you were wondering, children are naturally and deeply religious, spiritual beings. They consider and they question the profound issues of life. How many of you attended some kind of a religious community when you were a child? Not all, but many. And think about what the positive experiences were of those childhood experiences. Think about any positive moments you had. Because when I ask that question, it's rarely the content of a particular lesson that anyone ever remembers. Sometimes a project, but rarely ever a particular lesson that anyone remembers when asked to think of a positive experience that has made an impact. Sometimes there are specific rituals, sometimes especially important occasions that are remembered, but almost always it is particular people that are remembered. It's Jackie Alexander for your daughter. It's people that are remembered by children and youth who have positive experiences in a religious community. It's adults that they interacted with in a positive and an encouraging way. One-on-one human connections occurring in community. Now, the first minister that I can remember in my life, and for those of you who know, I grew up Southern Baptist, so that meant Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon choir practice, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and often Friday nights. So I had a lot of ministers in my life. But the first one that I can remember was Brother Charles. I really have no clue what his last name was to this day. Brother Charles from Vassar Road Baptist Church in Poughkeepsie, New York. It was 1969. I was 6 years old, and I had quite a crush on Brother Charles. I wanted to marry him. But remember, I also wanted to marry Elvis and Paul Anka at the same time. Brother Charles didn't do anything that my 6-year-old senses found extraordinary. But I knew in my little heart, I knew that he cared. He cared not only about me, I knew he cared about the members of that church. He showed interest with a tenderness and a deep respect, no matter your age, no matter your stage in life. His very presence impacted me. Now, one of my favorite hymns at that time was based on cornerstone Christian scripture. Some of you may know it from your past. Jerry knows, he's already smiling. It was cornerstone scripture that said, whosoever believeth in him. Does that ring a bell for any? A lot. Okay. Well, there was a hymn based on that, and I loved belting out that hymn. The hymn was called Whosoever Surely Meaneth Me. Whosoever surely meaneth me, surely meaneth me, oh, surely meaneth me. Whosoever surely meaneth me, whosoever meaneth me. I just mentioned it to Jerry this morning when I got here, and look what happened. There was a problem, though. You see, I thought the adults were actually singing something else. So I wasn't belting out whosoever surely meaneth me. I was belting out whosoever surely beaneth me. Oh, my parents were mortified. But Brother Charles didn't flinch. He did not laugh. He completely accepted my faux pas. He didn't seek to correct me. He accepted me for who I was, a 6-year-old, inquiring, loving child. When I first shared this image of a magical village garden in a Sunday service several years ago, there was another 6-year-old, much more precocious than I was, who approached me in the receiving line. And she just said one sentence to me, not hello, just looked at me and said, "You forgot the soil." Not dirt, soil. You forgot the soil. You can't forget the soil. She's right. We can't forget the soil. We are responsible for the soil, for providing and preparing the nutrient-dense soil that will nurture and feed and provide a home for those garden blooms. You know, for some children beyond the family, the religious community may feel like the only safe and appropriate place to bring their personal concerns and their significant life passages, to share those. I know our children and our youth share them together. One of my seminary professors, Reverend David Bumbaugh, wrote in a sermon that how, as a minister, he listened to the voices of children and, I quote, was constantly reminded that one of the duties of the church and its leaders is to speak for the children, for the future they represent, lest they and the future be destroyed in our grasping for the main chance, in our scrambling for immediate gratification. We can't forget the soil. I was reminded by a 6-year-old of just how important that part of gardening is. And even though I had been a mother since the age of 24, I had taught in a religious education program at the Barn, a former iteration of this community. I had worked with Girl Scouts, even more. But it was 2004, when I was 41 years old, that I fully recognized my role, my responsibility as a village gardener. It was my second year of seminary in Chicago. My family and I were living on the south side of Chicago. And it's when I took part in my very first organized protest. I've always been a little bit of a late bloomer. But I was joining with others in support of the Village Garden there on the south side of Chicago, just outside a McDonald's restaurant. A situation had been created when a young high school girl, I believe she was 15, refused to give up her seat in a section of the McDonald's that had been declared by the management as off limits to her and her friends. The assigned student section was elsewhere with far too few seats to even accommodate the lunching students who patronized that McDonald's every single day. She had paid for her lunch that day, just like all the other days. But when that small section that she was supposed to sit in, when that was full, well, she made the decision to sit where there were plenty of open seats, where she desired, just like any other paying customer. She was not disrespectful. She was not disruptive. And yet this 15-year-old girl was handcuffed, and she was removed from the McDonald's for refusing to give up her seat. When the protest was announced, I decided to join. I admit I found myself actually getting choked up while I was protesting. And in reflection, I came to realize that it was because I was so moved by the fact that I was standing in a protest with an interracial, interfaith, intergenerational crowd who knew with all of their minds and their bodies and their spirits that tending the Village Garden on the south side of Chicago was everyone's responsibility. We are gardeners, one and all. What I saw and heard and felt in those moments of protest was not despair. It was hope. It was solidarity in the rich soil of community. We are the gardeners, not unlike the families in this morning's story, acting on the children's needs for a playground in a valley of bricks, coming together to work side by side on behalf of the children, to construct a purple castle tower and a bumpy, twisty slide. The gardeners listened, and they acted, and they knew their role. If we choose not to act, if we choose to view some of those garden flowers as nothing more than annoying weeds or insignificant, not really worth our effort, leaving them to their own tending, some will wither, some will die before their time, or run wild, aimlessly searching for what they don't even know. Part of our task as gardeners is that painstaking work of training, of living by example, and pruning. It's a difficult job, and it leaves no room for neglect and no room for complacency. It requires that we speak the truth in love. And sometimes it means saying, I believe in you, and I'm willing to do my part. Author and psychologist Mary Pfeiffer relays a childhood memory that has impacted her life. She said, as a child, I stole lilacs from Mrs. Williams. She must have been watching from the window, because immediately after I picked them, there she was right by my side in her robe and slippers. She made me return the flowers, and then she walked off to call my mother at work and tell her about my crime. But that's the point, really. She knew my name. She knew how to find my parents. And when I arrived home, my parents lectured me. They made me write a letter of apology. And to this day, I do think Mrs. Williams was a bit crabby and did overreact. But I have never stolen anything not even a lilac since that encounter. Our country has moved from small, isolated communities of years ago to one big company town. Big box stores, we know they've replaced most of the mom and pop stores, and fast food restaurants have replaced many of the city cafes. We're now united by our media and by what we consume. But money-driven corporate culture does not support the village, and it sure doesn't garden. Villages, communities, the rich soil can support and teach positive behavior and compassion and values. They give families a sense of history, of place, and offer them a complex weave of people from whom to learn how to be more fully human. We are all a part of that village that provides children with good stories, with cautionary tales, with moral fables. Since the beginning of time, we humans have shared our lives with those around us. We've watched out for each other. And while the world has changed, we know it has. And many of us and many of our children feel unconnected, feel alone. But we've not changed. We still want a safe and stimulating world for ourselves and for our children, for the Ukrainian children, for our UUCD children. And we were all children once, weren't we? We were the flowers in the magical village garden. Which flower were you? Were you the bold and proud tulip? Were you a dependable tiger lily? Or were you a shy and delicate violet? Some of us were blessed with gardeners who mothered us with care and fathered us with words of wisdom, and others of us were not so blessed. Others were left unattended or undernourished. It might not have been until we left the garden as a young adult that we actually experienced the care and the wisdom that in some way encouraged or inspired us. But let today be a day that you remember all those who have positively influenced your life as a child. Think of those people. Hold those people. Those who tended the soil and the garden before us. We are, after all, as one of my favorite songs says, our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. Ancestors of family and friends who took up the role of gardener of our spirits as children. They held us in their hearts or their prayers when we were but flowers in their village garden. They were tending the garden by guiding and inspiring and pushing and pulling and hoping and helping. And now we are called to do the same. Whether it's embracing fully that role for the very first time, or maybe it's just recommitting ourselves to that role as a village gardener. It isn't dependent on theological commitment. It isn't dependent on political leanings. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter if you're single or you're partnered, you're straight, you're gay, you're rich, you're poor, you have 3 advanced degrees, or you graduated from the School of Hard Knocks. We are all called to be gardeners in this community. We provide and we prepare the soil. And some days we're going to have the back-breaking work of pruning the garden. And some days we will be on watch in the garden. We'll be like a guardian scarecrow, protecting and sheltering. And there are other times when we need only to lean over that fence and just encourage those flowers. Keep stretching. Come on. Keep reaching for the sky. The garden is waiting. While our beautiful little vegetable garden, I can see it from this window right here. While that garden is waiting for the weather to change, Our magical village garden is always waiting, no matter the season. It's waiting for each and every one of us to don those gardening gloves. They're right there. Don the gloves, grab a shovel. Do it. Because our magical garden of flowers waits for us to dive into that soil. And they will constantly remind us, I am your hope. I am your chance. I am your child. Blessed be the village garden, and blessed are those who tend it. May it be so.
It's now time for us to extinguish our chalice. Please join me in our shared declaration. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. And now let's join together and sing Come Sing a Song with Me, number 346.
Let's rise in body or spirit.
Sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind, and I'll bring you home when home is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when home is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when home is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when home is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love to time.
Let us go forth from here as blessed gardeners, nourishing, pruning, protecting, guiding, and inspiring ourselves, each other, our children, our village, our world. Salam. Shalom. Amen. Blessed be to each and to all, here, the Ukraine, and beyond. Namaste.
Jerry. This concludes our service, but now is our social time. And for those of you at home, you're going to be directed to a breakout room. So just wait for that little link that you can join. And those of us here are going to have an opportunity to say hello to each other. Thank you so much for coming today.